So welcome back to another episode, and welcome to my video game obsession. Yes, look beside me. This is my PC Engine collection from Japan. A couple of TurboGrafx games in there as well. And I wanted to talk about how does it get to this level? And what does this mean? Is this a problem? Why do I have a problem? What is it all about? And I decided today to start talking about one collection in general, and that is the PC Engine collection that I've gone overboard with. I've gone too far in a lot of places. I know that. And I want to really go in depth today and psychologically explain why it gets to this level and what it means. I will ask you guys out there, do any of you have some crazy collections? Things that have gotten out of hand? You're like, how did it get to this? Why am I so obsessive about this one particular video game thing that I'm into? You know, whether it be Final Fantasy or action games, Mario games, whatever it may be, let me know down below if you've gone too far. And yes, I've gone too far, and I'm going to move these over to the side a little bit here so I can talk and move. I got so many PC Engine games here that I can't even maneuver too well. Okay, I think that's a little bit better. But yeah, I really want to talk about why I got to this level. And I've got 300 plus PC Engine games that I've been collecting for quite literally around 34 years. So it's not something I did overnight. It's not something I woke up in the morning and said, hey, I'm just gonna buy this old system, la-di-da, and not even care about it. No, there's a lot of reasons behind all of this. And I want to say one thing. I really, and I know it sounds impossible, I really love all of these games in this collection. It really means something to me, and I'm gonna start at the beginning, if you'll indulge me. And we have to go back to 1989 before I even knew what the PC Engine was. What is that? I was playing the NES and the Master System, having a great old time. And listen, I used my turbo chips as bookmarks for where I want to get to in here. I went up to my local Save On Foods, it was, and they had a book section in there, and I would buy the latest video game magazines whenever they were released. I was insatiable about it. And this is the magazine I bought back in 1989. It's a Game Pro magazine, and I must admit, Game Pro wasn't my favorite back then. I really liked EGM, and then especially into Die Hard Game Fan. But I picked up this issue, and I'm just flipping through it, you know, la-di-da, going through it, going, hey, this is pretty cool, this is interesting. And then I got to this one section right here. And this, I've talked about it in other videos, but I can't stress it enough. I saw this here, not an advertisement, but kind of a looking into consoles that were in Japan that weren't over here yet. We have the Sega Mega Drive over here, the Sega Mega Drive, and I just love these photographs they took. You know, the purpley pink background. I thought that was so awesome. It made these machines seem like something else. It really made them seem like the future, which they were about to be. So the Mega Drive there would eventually come over here as the Genesis. And so I was very excited about that because it was a big Sega kit. But I looked over here, I'm like, what is that? What is that? It's a little white console that took little credit card size games? It took games this size. And so, you know, a lot of us out there right now love the Switch because of this very small cartridges. This was incredibly small at the time, especially compared to an NES cartridge or a Master System cartridge. You couldn't believe it. You're like, there's a video game on this? And I remember thinking how exciting it would be to buy games for this Japanese only system at the time and go to my friend's house and have like 5 of them in my pocket. I said, hey, let's play this latest game, which would at the time be cutting edge stuff. And I gotta state that here, this technology, it's hard to wrap your head around now, right? Like 34 years ago, was state of the art. It was state of the art. And I remember looking at this little white console and thinking, wow, that it really sparked my imagination and excitement. And I was sold. I was like so into that. And then we found out a little bit after that, that the TurboGrafx was going to come into this country. It was the PC Engine to the TurboGrafx. We were getting an American version of the PC Engine. And they were bringing out a whole bunch of games, and I have a whole bunch of them right here, and that's a love affair into itself, which I'll get into in a split second. But me and my friends got on a bus, and we went to a local mall. It was called Guildford Mall, and it was just before Christmas time, and I'll never forget it, that there was this little store, and they had the PC Engine core graphics. And we could go in the store and we could play these games. So they had like Batman on there, a whole bunch of different games. We were playing shooters. And I realized that this was better than the regular Nintendo, which we were all playing back then. I was like, this is fantastic stuff. And we were such stupid young kids. We were like 14 years old. That I think I've told this in another story as well, is that my friend, back in the 80s, I mean, you had nothing else to do. You really didn't at times. Everybody forgets how much of a boring time the 80s and 90s could be at times. It's not like nowadays with the internet the way it is. But we would be sitting around, and my friend would prank call this little, it wasn't even a game store, it was like an electronics place, and they happened to have the PC Engine, and he'd use his crazy voice. He'd go, "Hello, I'm looking to get the PC Engine. What games do you have on the PC Engine?" And we, at the time, I know it's juvenile beyond reality, we thought this was so funny, and it gave us another connection to be able to talk to the people who own this store, who had this magical machine. Okay, that would be the end of the PC Engine at that time for me, in its form, its Japanese form. But I was fascinated about all the Japanese games on this machine. I thought, this is so cool and all that. Then we got the TurboGrafx system, which came just to play the turbo chips itself. You could just only play these on them to begin with. And so the initial games came out, some amazing games like Legendary Axe. I know a lot of people don't like Keith Courage. I thought Keith Courage looked amazing. It looked like a cartoon at the time. You know, it was an action platformer game following like Mario. Yes, it was no Mario, but it was pretty cool. I loved being able to change into a mech. I thought it was great. But Legendary Axe, Dungeon Explorer was so exciting that you could play with your friends in a gauntlet-style way. Aero Blasters. I could go on and on about every single game. JJ and Jeff, I mean, a game that was very Japanese, based on a show over there that we got over here, and they changed the name. It was like, Kato in Japan, and they just call it JJ and Jeff, and strange stuff. I like the TurboGrafx, but then all of a sudden there was some competition in the country. The Genesis came out, which was amazing, which I did get for Christmas. That winter, in the winter of 1989, and it was glorious. It was glorious. And this is what happened. The Genesis crushed the TurboGrafx, and then the Super Nintendo came out, and any momentum that the TurboGrafx was gaining was crushed. It just was such a small system with such a small market that it was very niche, that not a lot of people knew about it, not a lot of people had them. I knew one kid in my entire high school that had a TurboGrafx, and we would talk about it on the way home, and we talk about like Vigilante, the game side view, and all this kinds of stuff. Anything that we could talk about the TurboGrafx, we did, because that was all we had. There was no internet. I couldn't go watch some idiot like me talking about the TurboGrafx. So we, the only excitement we got was talking to him, and a really cool kid. His name was Cool Deep, from what I remember. He was a really nice guy in our school, and so that was my excitement talking to him. So I got into the TurboGrafx big time, and then that Christmas, I've told the story many times. My parents bought me the CD add-on, and so the PC Engine in Japan got a CD add-on. And then they created a Duo, an all-in-one machine later on. But we had the TurboGrafx, and then we got the TurboGrafx CD-ROM, which was super expensive. And I'm telling you, I didn't have many Christmases like this, but my parents bought me the TurboGrafx CD player. I've said it many times in the show. And I played Eastbooks 1 and 2 that Christmas morning, and it was like a game changer. And why I'm so obsessed, and this is what it's all about. This was the first time, and it was the first console CD-ROM technology released at that time. It was the first. And I had one of the very first action RPGs on the console, which was Xbox One 2. It had orchestrated music, which you did not hear in the NES or the Mega Drive or the Genesis, or in turbo chips. They could do that with the CD-ROM technology at the time. This was like groundbreaking. And I can't stress it enough. You had to be there. It was groundbreaking when you first listened to music playing off a CD game. Now we take it all for granted. You hear the Skyrim music now blasting. You're like, yeah, that's awesome music. But I mean, at this time, it's like in the 90s, like early 90s, 1990, you're like, whoa, like 1991, you're like, whoa, my God. And it had cinematics where you could see characters talking. So in the past, you'd have RPGs and you'd just see flat things of characters, but now they could talk and you could hear their voices. And it felt like, I know this is cheesy, but it felt like you were really immersed and a character was talking to you. It made you more, get more immersed into the story, made you feel more part of it, it made it feel more real. That was what was so unbelievable. And then after that, I would get more CD games and stuff like that. I talked about those on the channel over the years. And it was always something that was very near and dear to my heart. I think because the TurboGrafx bombed in this country. But yet, in Japan, look at this. The PC Engine was alive and exciting and big. So many RPGs, so many games that people still to this day have not heard about. And after that, it became my little thing once in a while to go to a store and find a PC Engine game and rent it, or I'd buy it. And over the years, I'd just start collecting little games here and there. And I started to research into it. And I started to find out about all of the games on this console. And it really sparked a passion that I still have. And this is something I want to state. I really want to state this because I knew everybody would see the thumbnail. And they're like, oh, there's Johnny bragging his gaming collection. And that's what I want to say. This collection is for me personally. I personally believe that there's not a lot of people now who even know what this is or who would even really care. And it's nothing of a bragging. I didn't buy all these games to brag. I bought all these games because I love them, because they really are a part of my youth and my childhood, of me growing up in the 90s, being 14, 15, 16, up to 21, up to now. It's about that time period and about all of these games and about all these, and realistically, again, what it is about is that they're all heavily anime based. And I've always been such an anime fan, and I'm especially early 80s anime. I am crazy for. I'm still buying so many Blu-rays to get all my classics that I grew up with. And this represents that time period. This is what these games have. This is what they are on my shelf. When I walk in and I look at this shelf and you just see Japanese titles and all of these. I was a very strange kid. I was one of the few, as I said, kids in my school who even knew what a TurboGrafx was. Never mind the PC Engine, never mind anime. Nobody even knew what anime was in North America when I was into it. And again, that's not a bragging thing. It was just my passion. I discovered all this richness from Japan that was so tangible and exciting. I still, to this day, as I say, I look in and I look at my shelves, I get excited seeing all these different titles, and I'll go and play all of these. I had a PC Engine day the other day where I was just playing so many of these games, and yes, don't worry, I'll be covering so many of them in upcoming episodes. Got lots planned for this year. Lots planned. But it's interesting to start off as an innocent kid that looked in a magazine and saw this thing in Japan and was like, hey, and but it wasn't just like I saw it and it was like, oh, that's neat. My imagination was like getting crazy, thinking about bringing games over that I didn't even own to friends of mine's place, and the possibility of RPGs coming to this country that, we would not get any other way. And I ended up getting, years later, and I still to this day, I researched so much of it. Like with books like this, I back the Kickstarter, PC Engine TurboGrafx-16, PCFX. This is a fantastic book for anybody who is a in love with the PC Engine, or somebody who doesn't even know about it, this book, I'm not sponsored by any of these guys, but I pick these books up personally because I love them. And again, lately, this really sparked my addiction. Again, this PC Engine, the box art collection by Bitmap Books. I love Bitmap Books in general. And flipping through this book again, it's all in the box arts. And that's the thing you got to get into. The box arts are so phenomenal for this machine that each game I buy it for the place and time that it was, the box art, and obviously the game, the music, what it represents, and all of that. These games are like a museum of history and of artwork at that time and imagination, and these games have it all. You wouldn't believe the amount of incredible box arts, and that's what this book sparked in me, flipping through it, drinking tea. That's what I do these days, drink tea, and I'm flipping through it, and I'm just like, hey, I don't know about this game, or I don't know about that game, and I'm taking photos with my iPhone, and then I'm getting a few more games, and then before I know it, I'm in another PC Engine enthusiastic explosion in my mind. I'm going down incredible rabbit holes with these games and this history, and it's crazy. I mean, this machine and these games are just unbelievable with the breadth of games that they have. There's so many platforming games, so many RPGs, so many racing games and action games, and just like first-person adventure style of games that I think are incredible. And still to this day, they capture my imagination. And when I look at this collection, it just genuinely makes me happy. It makes me remember who I was and where I'm from, and it keeps me on track of who I really am. And it's funny, somebody say, oh, what, video games make you who you are? No, I am who I am, but these games have littered my life with such pleasure and such intrigue and such a adventure, if you would call it that, and taking me on some really interesting roads into some of where these things lead to. And you wouldn't believe it. There's some fascinating games in here. And as I say, we're going to talk about a lot of them this year. And I just want to come in and talk about my passion for video games in general. I used the PC Engine today as an example of somebody going a little bit over the top and getting a few too many games, but wanting to justify why. And that's the reason why I have all of the games in my collection. That's why I have all my Super Nintendo games, my Neo Geo games, my Switch collection now, my PS5 collection, is because this is a passion for me. And it's not just something I woke up one day and was like, yeah, I kind of like video games. It's like, no, we've got a problem. We've got a severe problem that I really, really enjoy. I mean, to be honest with you, I could be into a lot worse things. I could be really into drugs or heavy drinking or anything like that, or smoking, which is something I gave up 15 years ago. But no, this is my drug, and this is for myself my healthier way to deal with my life and all of that. And I really enjoy it, and it really gets me up every day and puts me in a good mood, and especially having you guys being able to watch this stuff and to watch me talk about it. I have somebody to talk to finally, not just like that kid that was in high school. I only had Kuldeep back then to talk to about the TurboGrafx on a rainy walk home in Vancouver weather in the winter of 1989. Still remember it very, very well. And it's nice to be able to, that I can talk to somebody about this crazy affliction of mine. And I'm really curious, guys. Like, what are some of your video game obsessions? I'm sure a lot of you out there have some different ones, some crazy ones, some Tifa collections or whatever it may be, some statue collecting from gaming. What is your thing? What is your thing? These are all my things, but I want to know what your obsessive compulsive video game collecting is down below. It's going to be really fascinating to look at. I definitely invite everybody else to read some of the responses, because it's going to be really neat to hear about what other people find so interesting about video gaming and where it took them in their lives. And my life took me here. I said, unfortunately, and it's something I truly, truly, really enjoy. So I just want to thank you guys for watching this episode and sticking with me right to the end here. And I'll say my line. So anyways, guys, until next time.